There's a day in your life that you likely don't even remember, a day that shifted everything. On that day, you looked at someone you loved, saw disapproval in their eyes, and made a silent decision. You decided that a part of you needed to die. Not physically, no, something much deeper. You decided that who you really were just wasn't good enough. And in that moment, without even realizing it, you began to pretend to be someone else. Carl Jung called this the birth of the persona, but I'm going to call it what it truly is. The day of your first murder, the murder of your authentic self. And here's what no one told you. You're still pretending every relationship, every conversation, every smile at work. Every post on social media, it's all an elaborate performance of someone you invented decades ago, just to survive. And the most disturbing part? You've been faking it for so long. You've forgotten you're faking it. You've mistaken the mask for your face. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly when this happened in your life. I'm going to reveal the signs that you're still trapped in this performance. And more importantly, I'm going to show you how Jung said we can finally stop pretending and rediscover who we really were before we die without ever truly having lived as ourselves. But first, we need to go back to the beginning, to the exact moment everything changed. You were born complete. This isn't poetry. It's neuroscience. When a baby comes into the world, there is no shame, no self-criticism, no concept whatsoever that they should be anything other than what they are. A baby cries when it wants to cry, laughs when something is funny, expresses anger, fear, joy, all without filter, without editing, without a single worry about what others will think. Jung observed this and asked a question that changed psychology forever. If we are born whole, authentic, completely ourselves, what happens? Where does that person go? Because clearly, looking at adults, something gets lost along the way. The answer he found is devastating in its simplicity. That person doesn't die, they hide. And the hiding place they choose is so deep, so inaccessible, that we spend our entire lives looking in the wrong places. We look in achievements, in relationships, in approval, in money, in success. But what we're really looking for is already inside of us, locked away, waiting. Now let's get to that specific moment, because there was a moment. Maybe you don't remember it consciously, but your body remembers, your soul remembers, your automatic reactions. Remember, you were a child, maybe 3 years old, maybe 5, maybe 7. The exact age varies, but the pattern is universal. You were being yourself, completely yourself. Maybe you were shrieking with joy, or maybe you were crying in frustration. Maybe you were asking too many questions. Maybe you were too quiet. Maybe you were being too intense, too dramatic, too sensitive, and too loud, too something. And then it happened. Someone you loved, someone you depended on for survival, looked at you with that expression. You know the one. Disappointment, irritation, shame, rejection. Maybe there were words. Stop doing that. You're embarrassing me. Why can't you be normal? Look at how your brother behaves. You're driving me crazy. I can't take you like this anymore. Or maybe it was silence. The silence that communicated everything. The withdrawal, the coldness, and the averted gaze. The attention that vanished exactly when you needed it most. In that moment, something inside you calculated. Not consciously, no, you were too young for conscious thought about this, but a primitive part, a part that exists solely to guarantee survival, made a terrible equation. Being myself equals losing love. Losing love equals danger. Therefore, being myself equals danger. And like any organism that wants to survive, you adapted, quickly, brilliantly, tragically. You started to observe. What makes this person love me? What makes this person reject me? You started to calibrate, less of this, more of that. Hide this emotion, exaggerate that one. You began to build, brick by brick, a version of yourself that was safe, acceptable, lovable. Jung called this the persona. It comes from Latin. It means mask. The masks that actors wore in ancient theater. And that's exactly what you created. A mask, a character, an edited version of yourself to present to the world. The problem? You were so young when you started wearing this mask that you forgot it was a mask. You thought it was you. Let me give you a concrete example of how this works. Imagine a 5-year-old girl who is naturally expressive. She speaks loudly. She gestures. She laughs with her whole body. She cries when she's sad. She expresses anger when something is unfair. She is, in a word, intense. Now imagine that this girl's mother is someone who was taught that good girls are quiet, delicate, don't make a scene, don't bother anyone. This mother isn't bad. She's probably just repeating what was done to her. But every time the daughter expresses intensity, the mother reacts, sighs, scolds, withdraws, compares her to other, better-behaved children. What does this girl learn? She learns that being herself causes pain, causes rejection, causes the withdrawal of the person she loves most and depends on the most. So she does what any human being would do to survive. She kills that part of herself, not literally. She hides it, buries it, locks it away in a psychic basement that Jung called the shadow self. And in place of that intensity, she builds a persona, the quiet girl, the easy girl, the girl who doesn't bother anyone, the girl everyone praises for being so well-behaved, and every compliment reinforces the prison. Every "you're such a good girl" confirms that she made the right choice in killing who she really was. 20 years later, this girl is a woman who can't express anger, who swallows everything, who smiles when she's dying inside, who attracts partners who ignore her needs because she herself ignores her needs, who has a voice so quiet that people ask her to repeat herself, who feels invisible in groups, who has a sadness she can't explain, a longing for something she can't name. What is she longing for? For herself? For the intense girl she murdered to survive? Does this resonate? If so, I need you to pay very close attention to what I'm about to say now, because understanding how this happened is just the first step. The real work is in understanding the cost you're paying to this day for that decision you made when you were too young to know what you were doing. The cost of the persona is something that Jung studied obsessively, and what he discovered will explain virtually all of the psychological suffering you've ever felt in your adult life. First cost: chronic exhaustion. Pretending is work. Maintaining a performance is work. Every interaction where you can't be yourself drains energy. Think about how much effort it takes to hold a facial expression that doesn't match what you're feeling. To choose each word carefully. To constantly monitor how you're being perceived. To adjust, calibrate, edit in real time. It's exhausting. People living behind strong personas often report an exhaustion that doesn't seem proportional to their activities. They sleep and wake up tired. They take vacations and come back depleted. Because the problem isn't the external work. It's the internal work of maintaining an existential lie, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for decades. Second cost: superficial relationships. If you only show your persona to people, people only connect with your persona. This means that all the love you receive, all the acceptance, all the validation, goes to the mask, not to you. It's like receiving a gift wrapped in a package that isn't yours. The packaging looks beautiful, but you feel empty inside. This explains why so many people who are liked, admired, even loved, feel profoundly alone. Because a part of them knows, if these people saw who I really am, if they saw what I hide, Vamada, they would reject me. This constant thought creates an invisible barrier in every relationship. A distance that you feel but can't explain. You can be surrounded by people and completely alone because none of them truly know you. Third cost: loss of vitality. Jung was very clear about this. When you reject parts of yourself, you're not rejecting neutral pieces. You're rejecting vital energy. The anger you hide contains your ability to set boundaries. The sadness you deny contains your ability to process losses and move forward. The intensity you suppress contains your passion for life. The more you hide, the less alive you feel. People who have spent decades building elaborate personas often describe a sensation of living in black and white, while everyone else seems to live in color. They see other people getting emotional, getting excited, feeling things intensely, and feel an envy they can't explain. Why can't I feel like that? What's wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you. You're so busy pretending that there's no energy left to feel. Fourth cost, the most devastating of all. You don't know who you are. If you've spent decades being who you needed to be accepted, you've lost touch with who you really are. Ask someone who's lived behind a strong persona for years what they like to do, and watch the hesitation. The eyes that search for the right answer instead of simply responding. The genuine confusion about basic preferences. Do I like this? Or did I learn that I should like it? Do I want this? Or do I want it because someone will approve of me for wanting it? Am I feeling this? Or am I feeling what I know I'm expected to feel? This confusion isn't just a phase. It's the logical result of decades of systematic self-betrayal. If you've spent your whole life performing, how could you possibly know who the actor is behind the performance? If you've gotten this far and are feeling a profound discomfort, that's good. It means that something inside you is awakening. It means that the part you've hidden is listening and is asking to be seen. But before we talk about how to rediscover your true self, we need to talk about something that Carl Jung considered essential. Why does this system exist? Why did we develop the ability to create personas in the first place? The answer is that the persona isn't the problem. The problem is when it becomes the only thing that exists. Jung saw the persona as a necessary tool for social adaptation. Nobody can be completely transparent all the time. Nobody can express everything they feel in every situation. Some degree of adaptation to the environment is not only healthy but necessary for living in society. The problem arises when the adaptation is total, when there's no safe moment to be yourself, when the persona invades every space, including your moments alone, when you find yourself pretending even when there's no one to deceive. That is the sign that something is deeply wrong. And here's the tragic irony. Most people who have developed rigid personas did so because they had parents who also used rigid personas. The mom who taught her daughter to be a goody two-shoes probably learned the same lesson from her own mother. The dad who taught his son not to cry was probably taught the same way. It's a heritage of disconnection passed down from generation to generation. But there's hope in this heritage, because if it was learned, it can be unlearned. If the persona was built, it can be rebuilt. If the true self was hidden, it can be found. Jung spent the second half of his life developing a process for exactly that. He called it individuation. And what I'm going to show you now are the fundamental principles that he discovered about how to stop pretending and start being who you really are. Before we continue, if what I've said so far has made sense to you, if you've recognized yourself in this description, this is no coincidence. There's a reason you're watching this video right now. And I believe it's worth subscribing to this channel because the content we produce here is specifically about this process of rediscovering who you really are. Don't miss the next videos. Now let's get to the process. The first step of individuation is what Jung called recognition of the shadow self. The shadow self is everything you've rejected in yourself. All the qualities you decided were unacceptable. All the intensity you suppressed. All the anger you swallowed. All the sensitivity you hid. All the creativity you abandoned because someone said it was a waste of time. The shadow self doesn't disappear when you reject it. It goes to the psychic basement, and from the basement, it influences everything. Your unconscious choices, your exaggerated reactions, your repetitive patterns, your dreams, your fears. Jung said that what you don't bring to consciousness appears in your life as destiny. You get stuck in patterns you don't understand, repeating the same mistakes, attracting the same situations, because there's a part of you operating in the shadows that you refuse to look at. The first step is to look. This means paying attention to the things that irritate you disproportionately in others. What bothers you deeply in another person is often something you reject in yourself. The arrogant person annoys you because you've repressed your own assertiveness. The dramatic person bothers you because you've buried your own intensity. The thing is, that selfish person, the one who really gets under your skin, they infuriate you because you're denying yourself the right to have needs. Now, that's not always the case. Sometimes annoying people are just plain annoying. But when your reaction is disproportionate, when you feel a rage that just doesn't make rational sense, there's something from your shadow self being activated. The second step is the tough one. You have to remember who you were before you started playing a part. This involves some serious digging, childhood memories. What did you love to do before you learned it wasn't acceptable? What fascinated you before someone said it was silly, unproductive, a waste of time? What did you feel naturally before you learned those feelings were wrong? Some folks do this through therapy, others through journaling, still others through meditation. The method matters less than the intention. You're trying to find traces of your original self, buried beneath decades of garbage. And when you find it, brace yourself, because what you uncover might just surprise you. Many people discover that who they really are is the opposite of who they pretend to be. The person who always presents as calm finds a legitimate rage that's been suppressed for decades. The person who always presents as strong uncovers a vulnerability that's begging to be seen. The person who always presents as rational discovers an intuition and emotionality that have been locked away in their psychic basement, their shadow self. This is scary. And it's exactly why most people never do this work. Because finding your true self potentially means destroying the identity you've built, the identity you present to the world, the identity people around you know and expect, the identity that's gotten you this far. There's a real fear that if you stop pretending, you'll lose everything. The love, the relationships, the respect, the career, the life you've built. And here's what Carl Jung would say about it. He'd say you're partially right. You will lose things. The people who only love you for your mask will walk away when you take it off. Relationships based on who you pretend to be will disintegrate when you stop pretending. Situations that depend on your performance will become unsustainable when you stop performing. This is painful. I'm not going to lie to you. The process of individuation often involves real loss. But, and this is crucial, what you gain is infinitely more valuable. You gain yourself. You gain relationships where you're truly known. Connections where you don't have to be on guard. Love that goes to you, not your mask. Energy that isn't consumed by maintaining a performance. Clarity about what you really want, feel, and need. You gain the sense of finally being at home in your own skin, of finally being real, of finally stopping the pretense. This isn't just a metaphor. People who go through the process of shadow integration and abandoning the rigid persona describe a physical sensation of relief, like they've carried an invisible weight their entire life and can finally put it down, like they've held their breath for decades and can finally breathe. The third step is the bravest of all. Starting to show your true self to the world. That doesn't mean turning to everyone and dumping your entire shadow all at once. That'd be irresponsible and probably disastrous. What it means is starting small, choosing safe people, safe moments, and practicing being real. This can be as simple as saying no when you'd normally say yes, expressing an opinion you'd normally hide, asking for something you'd normally pretend not to need, showing an emotion you'd normally suppress. Each small act of authenticity is a victory. Each moment of being real instead of performing is a brick removed from the prison you built yourself. And here's what you'll discover. And it goes against everything you've believed your whole life. The people who matter won't leave when you stop pretending. They'll get closer, because authenticity creates a resonance that performance never can. When you're real, you give permission for others to be real too. When you take off your mask, others feel safe to take off theirs. When you stop pretending, you create space for genuine connection that most people are desperately seeking but never find, because everyone is too busy faking it. The relationships you lose by being authentic are relationships that were never really about you. The ones that stay are the ones that matter. Now there's something I need to warn you about, and this is important. The process I've described isn't linear. It's not clean. It's not comfortable. There will be days when you'll feel like you're regressing. Days when the persona will seem safer. Days when you'll question if all this work is even worth it. There will be people who prefer your mask, who will pressure you to go back to pretending, who will say you've changed. And not as a compliment. There will be moments of loneliness, because while you're abandoning your false self, you might feel suspended between two worlds, no longer fully the person you pretended to be, but not yet fully the person you really are. That in-between phase is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Jung called this the nigredo, the dark phase, the moment of chaos before the new order. It's like the chrysalis where the caterpillar disintegrates before turning into a butterfly. It's not pretty, it's not pleasant, but it's the only way. If you're in that phase right now, know that it's normal, know that it's temporary, know that it's working. Now let me tell you about what happens on the other side. Jung spent decades studying people who completed the process of individuation, people who integrated their shadow selves, abandoned their rigid personas, and became who they really were. What he observed was consistent. These people had a quality that was hard to describe, but impossible to ignore. A presence, a solidity, a peace that didn't depend on external circumstances. They weren't perfect, they weren't enlightened, they still had problems, conflicts, difficult moments. But there was something fundamentally different about them. They were no longer at war with themselves. They weren't spending energy trying to be something they weren't. They weren't seeking external validation because they already validated themselves internally. They weren't empty anymore because there wasn't a hole where their true self should be. Jung called this state selbst, the self, the integrated self, the whole person. And here's the part that impresses me the most. He said that this isn't a special state reserved for a chosen few. It's the natural state of being human. It's where we're all born. The process of individuation, but it isn't about adding something new. It's about removing what's in the way. It's about coming home. You were that person once, before you learned to pretend, before you created the mask, before you murdered parts of yourself, just to survive. That person is still there, waiting, ready to be found. The question is, do you have the courage to look? Before we wrap up, I need to give you something practical, something you can do today, right now, to start this process. The exercise is simple, but powerful. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. And ask yourself, when was the last time I pretended? What moment today or yesterday wasn't authentic? What was I really feeling? What did I show instead? Why did I hide the real me? Don't judge yourself for the answer. This isn't about guilt. It's about awareness. Because you can't change what you can't see. Most people never stop to ask this question. They're so used to faking it. They don't even realize they're pretending. The simple ACT of noticing is revolutionary. Do this every day. Just a few minutes of honest reflection. Where did I fake it today? What did I hide? What did I really feel? Over time, you'll start to notice patterns, specific situations that trigger the performance, specific people you can't be real with, specific emotions you always hide. This map is gold. It shows you exactly where the work needs to be done. And then, little by little, you can start to experiment in small doses, in safe situations, being a little more real, a little more honest, a little more you. Each time you do that, and the world doesn't end. You prove to yourself that it's safe. Each time you show a truth and are accepted, you undo a little bit of the conditioning. Each time you take off a piece of the mask and someone loves you anyway, you heal a piece of the original wound. This takes time. It's not going to happen in a week. Maybe not in a month, maybe not in a year. Decades of programming don't unravel quickly, but the alternative is what? To keep pretending, to keep performing, to keep feeling that emptiness you can't explain, to continue in relationships where you're not really known, to keep living a life that isn't really yours. Carl Jung had a quote that haunts me. He said, "The greatest tragedy isn't death, it's living a life that isn't your own." If you're watching this video this far, you probably know exactly what he meant. You probably feel, deep down, that you're living a version of yourself that isn't real, that there's someone trapped inside you who's never been allowed to exist. That person is waiting for you. The day you learned to pretend was the saddest day of your life, even if you don't remember it. But the day you choose to stop pretending could be the most liberating. You were forced to create a mask when you were too young to know what you were doing. You didn't have a choice. It was survival. But now you're an adult. Now you have a choice. Now you can decide, consciously, to start the path back to yourself. The question I leave you with is this: are you going to keep pretending? Or are you ready to finally be who you really are? If this video touched you, if you felt like it was speaking directly to you, that's no coincidence. There's a reason you're here. Subscribe to this channel because all of our content is about this process of rediscovery. And tell me in the comments, when was the moment you learned to pretend? What part of yourself did you hide to survive? Your story can help others who are going through the same thing. Thanks for watching until the end. That shows me you're taking this seriously. And I respect you for that. Until the next video. And remember, the person you really are is waiting to be found. Don't leave them waiting forever.